Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Listing Agent Podcast. My name is Keith Hernandez.
And I am Jasleen Chavez. We're so excited to have you here with us today. Here at the Listing Agent, we encourage you guys to just be a community, to share ideas, and we're just going to grow overall. So I'm very excited for today's podcast. Go ahead and introduce our special guest.
Yes, today we have Mr. Jay Green.
Woo!
Awesome.
He is a real estate entrepreneur. He's an author now.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
But yeah, so Jay, I know you do a lot of flips, you do a lot of development. So overall, first tell us, what you do and tell us a little about yourself.
And how you got into that.
And how you got into that, yes.
So thank you. Appreciate the opportunity. So been in this business for 30 years, graduated from USC. I started selling apartments right when I graduated. So did that whole thing of putting the suit on, cold calling like a maniac, trying to sell apartments. Got into the private lending in the 90s. So I used to knock on doors of foreclosures and help people, save their houses with money. So that's how I found out about private lending. So my main day job is I own GW Private Capital. I do a lot of private lending. I lend people to flippers, people that want to renovate a building, start a business. So I don't really get too much into the consumer side of lending. That's more for regular lenders that do the purchase loans and things like that. So again, 30 years of private lending. So I have with that experience, my background lend me into back in. Let's see, I also flip property. So I do a lot of that. That's also a big part of my business is buying and fixing up houses. Right now I have 3 flips and I have about 4 development deals where I'm building. I bought a land in South Amani. I'm going to build 6 units on that.
Wow.
So I'm learning the process. And to be successful at this, it's really having, good people. So it's not that I know everything about development. I'm learning that aspect. So it's important of choosing a good team that you have around you, architects, contractors, or partners that are going to help you, get to the finish line. So it's really important that, whether you're flipping a house or you're going to be developing land or building an ADU, is that you have a good team of people surrounding yourself with. And so I do flip a lot and I'll partner with a lot of people. And you asked me earlier, where do I find flip opportunities? Mm-hmm. And for me, a lot of them come from other realtors so I network a lot with realtors. People like yourselves will get to know me as a flipper. Mm-hmm. And so most of my opportunities just come from networking. Mm-hmm. I've done some marketing, things on Facebook or direct mail. But for me, what works best is usually realtors, or you asked me earlier about wholesalers. Mm-hmm. And they also can be, sometimes a good source of buying like flip opportunities.
I'm curious. That's a lot of great information we're going to jump into. But I'm curious. So you sold apartments.
I did.
You did. So you're a realtor.
I am a broker as well, but I don't really practice a lot of real estate. So, but I have. After that, I did. I've worked for Remax. I do have a strong background in real estate, but I don't sell real estate. Even on my own flips, I'll usually, the person that sold it to me, sell it. Because I feel like when I own the property, I have a lot of money invested in a deal.
Yeah.
And I'd rather turn it over to a friend or someone that sold me the property. Yeah. And, for what they're going to charge me on a listing fee, I really feel like they're going to get me more for the property because I'm financially invested in it so much that I think you're very concerned with the outcome. So I'd rather, hire a realtor like yourself. I would to help me sell it and get me more. And then I don't have to worry about that, so much. So, but I am a broker and I have a pretty strong background in real estate as well.
What'd you study at USC?
Business.
So do you think that this was always your plan, like selling apartments and going down this route?
When I was at USC, I thought just, selling apartments would be the way to go. And I think in the back of my head, I always wanted to get into development. I think people always, not everybody, but some people think about it like, they want to graduate into that. And I did work for a developer in the 90s in Newport Beach. So I would help him buy lots and go to the city council meetings and all that. So I do have a little bit of background in development, but I only worked for him for like a year and a half. So I left him, he retired, and then I got back into private lending. And for me, private lending has always just been a good, reliable business. Like you, selling your real estate is like something you're very comfortable with. You know, you can make a live. You can, you know, feed your
It's
family.
your bread and
right?
butter.
It's my bread. It's my bread and butter. You know, and so that's my day job. I enjoy doing it. But now that I've lent money to a lot of people, and sometimes me lending money to my customers, I've learned about these opportunities. Like that's what pushed me into, like 12 years ago when the market kind of came down to getting back into flipping. I was lending money to flippers and I would watch them, you know, what they were buying, what margins they had. So I learned a lot. I had some great mentors and it helped me to get into that, you know, full time. I did back in like 2013, 14, 15, I was doing it almost full time and not lending money, where I did like, I think 27 flips in 2014. So it was about, you know, 2 a month. And so I was very, I'm thinking, oh, this is what I want to do full time. But as we were just talking about earlier, market changes. You can't always, you know, predict what the market's going to do. You know, when rates are, you know, go up or inventory gets, you know, you get more inventory or consumer confidence drops or change in the economy. You know, the market, unfortunately, as a flipper, a developer, realtor, sometimes we are a little at the mercy of, you know, changing markets. So there, you know, at about like 18 things, I don't know, things changed a little bit. I think rates were going up a little bit. I just remember that back then people are like, oh, now we're going to top off, values going to come down, but they didn't. And then headed almost into COVID. And that was a real interesting time. I think we all thought, oh my God, you know,
The world was over.
The world's over, right? It's like, yeah. And I was really nervous. I had a big duplex in Silver Lake, and I was concerned because had an escrow for like 1.8 million, and I'm like, oh my goodness, is the buyer gonna like cancel on this? But as it turned out differently, you know, the government just printed a lot of money, you know, put money into the economy, kept, you know, people that are staying at home, you know, able to feed their families. And for those that were still practicing real estate, like, you know, 2020, 2021, were just like, you know, historically off the chart years. Like even our private lending, we did a lot of loans. My realtor friends that stayed in realtors, like everything just sold because of, I think, just really limited inventory, you know, historically low interest rates back then. I mean, a lot of us refinanced our houses in the 2s and 3s. So during COVID, that was just a crazy time. But you know, as a flipper developer, you know, we are so much at the mercy of the market. But right now, I think the market is doing well.
It's coming back.
It's coming back.
Sure.
No, it's back.
Yeah.
Have you seen how many offers I'm sure like your listings are getting or your flip? It's crazy. Like 10, 15, 20, like.
And we're talking like 50K over asking again.
Yeah.
For sure.
What do you attribute to that? I attribute the inventory, but there are other things that also you take into consideration thinking, you know, what is driving that demand right now for properties? Is it inventory?
It's mostly inventory for sure.
Shortage of inventory for sure. And, you know, the amount of buyers, they're still coming out. California has such a huge population and majority or some can't afford to buy a home. But again, it just goes back to inventory. There's not enough homes.
Yeah, I don't think buyers really care that the interest rates are at like 6.5.
Yeah.
They did last year.
Yeah.
But now they're realizing like, oh, maybe the house market is not going to crash. So I should probably buy a house while I still can.
Yeah.
And that's why I keep telling my clients, like, look, no one ever regrets. Usually they don't regret buying a house because once you buy a house, there's so much more opportunity that's presented to you once you're in.
Exactly.
You
Just
know?
getting your foot in the door. When I got in this business, I mean, rates were probably in the 8s or 9s. So for me to see rates in the 6s, they're still very palatable. Obviously, if you're a home buyer right now and you're comparing to last year's rates when we were in the 3s, it's a big difference. But I think, you know, the 6% rates are, you know, here to stay. I don't think they're going to be.
Everyone just got so spoiled with the 3s.
Absolutely.
And the
Yeah.
2s.
I do want to ask, so because you said that you like to raise capital, right? Mm-hmm. So when you're lending money, is it your own money you're lending, or is it you're raising capital to lend to a certain flipper? Like, how does that process work? I'm just really curious as to how that works.
Mostly it's friends and family that I've met, well, obviously I know my family, but people that I've met over the 30 years, like that have money that invest in trust deeds. So they'll be introduced to me through other friends, or they might find me on the internet. So these are private investors that fund these loans. I have a couple of friends that manage small mortgage pools, and some of the money may come from that. But mostly they're just individual investors that understand private lending and, recording trust deeds. They understand real estate a little bit. So most of our capital does come from individual investors that live here in California.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So if someone says, hey, Jay, I have $1 million.
To invest?
Yeah, no, like
Oh.
so say I had $1 million and I'm like, hey, if go fund a loan for me or something. Like, is that how it works?
Kind of. We get a lot of loan requests. Like last week I had lunch with someone that wants to invest with me, and I just told them our process is people will call me with a loan request. They want to buy a flip. They want $30,000 to make some improvements to a rental property or go open a business, because I'll do loans as small as $30,000, and then I'll gather up some preliminary information, kind of the address, ask about their credit, know the value of the property, what they're doing with the money, when they think they're going to repay us, and then I'll just put together a summary, and then I'll reach out to that person with $1 million. I'll say, hey, I have a loan request for you. It's located here in Whittier. The person's going to, renovate. They're going to buy this flip. This is, what they're paying for it. This is what they're going to sell it for. So I'm kind of laying out a summary. And then you'll say, you with your $1 million, say, yeah, that sounds like a good deal. They're buying it for $800 and they're going to sell it for $1.2. I'll lend. And then the decision is going to be made of how much you're going to lend, to this flipper or this person based on how comfortable you are, and kind of market. Like there's kind of standards for lending private money. Everybody's a little bit different. Some are a little bit more aggressive. Others a little bit more conservative, as far as the lenders speaking. But on a flip, let's say someone is going to buy something in Whittier for $800,000. Most private money lenders, or we will do about 80 to 90% of the purchase price, and then we will also do the renovation cost. So it depends on the borrower and their credit and their experience of what that loan's going to look like for that flipper. But for our investors, you have to meet the requirements from the California Department of Real Estate. So not just everybody can invest in deed of trust. Yeah. You do have to meet the requirements, the suitability requirements, which are a lot less than an accredited investor. And accredited investors are those that have to have like $1 million net worth. And those are more for like more speculative, like oil and big development deals, or, start, investing in big companies. But for private lending, you have to have a $250,000 net worth or a annual income of $65,000. So to become a private investor, the hurdles are not too high. But I love investing in deeds of trust and lending money to people that need capital, that own real estate. So the lending side for me is it's fun and rewarding, because then I build relationships and help people get into deals, whether, sometimes I'll partner with people. So it's fun for me to be able to help someone accomplish, like buying a deal that's, kind of tough, or under a really quick timeline where they have to buy it in a couple of days, and I can perform. I feel good about that.
You like getting creative, it seems like.
We try.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fun business.
Do you remember your first flip?
I do.
And how old were you?
I was in my 20s, and my buddy and I bought a property in Long Beach, and we didn't know too much about what we were doing. One of my escrow gals helped us a lot, because when we were young, we didn't know completely kind of how to look at title reports and what to look out for. And back then, what we would do is we would give homeowners a certain amount of money and then just take over the payments on their loan. So we didn't have to come up with. And back then, properties were like under 200,000. Like I think we were paying like 170, 180. But what I do back then is usually just give a homeowner some money and say, hey, I'm gonna give you 10,000, 15, and then we'll just take over the payments on your mortgage. So I went to an attorney, and he told me how to do this. I'd give him like a 7-day cooling down period. So. And then we would kind of look at the comps and go, okay, if I buy it for 180, and we put, back then it was it was the rehab was much less, like 10, 15,000, not like what we're spending today. And then we would just put it back on the market, and every one I did, that one was profitable, but that was one of my first flips, was the one in Long Beach. So
Nice.
yeah, just taking over someone's payments.
Yeah. And that's not sub 2 lending, right? Or
Like subject to?
yeah.
Kind of, I
Kinda?
think. Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
You're taking it like subject to the existing mortgage that's on the property. So where you're just assuming, and what's good about it is, their credit's already, not the best because they're already behind, right? So most of the time they'd be fine with me just taking over their payments and bringing it current, and then I would eventually sell the property and pay their loan off. But then I didn't have to come up with that, part of the money. So it is a good creative way, if you are, wanting to buy a property and the person's willing, let you take over their payments. It's a good way to leverage into it.
So technically, you didn't have to qualify.
No, I did not. Even though my credit was good, but I didn't. And especially since I was, younger and self-employed, it would have been really hard for me to get a bank loan back then.
I come across a lot of clientele. Well, not a lot, but that seemed to be a huge trend back then. I get a lot of clientele asking if that's still around. Do you really see that around today?
No, you don't see it. Unless the person's like maybe in a distressed situation and they're, first of all, they have to be willing to sell their house to you, which a lot of people that are behind don't really want to sell their house. I mean, it's kind of like a last resort, and they're not always willing to let you take over their payments, but it's a possibility. But I wouldn't say it's like, I don't see it too often. Most buyers or flippers are going in and just, getting new financing or coming in with cash to buy that property.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I think that's an important thing that you said, right? You're like, you don't have to know everything to kind of jump into it.
No.
Which is awesome, because I feel like a lot of people are waiting to know everything about anything, like everything, you know what I mean? And so it kind of delays them. And that's where I find myself too. Well, our first flip, I'm like, I don't know anything about flipping, but we're doing the damn thing. So we'll learn as we go, So that's a really good attribute that I think you have, that you think like that,
I don't know. Sometimes it's, a little, scary. Sometimes I just bought 11,000 square foot lot in South El Monte, and I do have a good partner. I have a good architect, and, but I think you have these plans, you lay them out and you hope they all fall into place.
Yeah.
And I'm confident it will, but sometimes you don't need to know everything. Just if you know the basics, jump into it. And, okay, the most important thing in a flip or in most development things is the price,
right?
What you buy for. Okay. You buy it low enough and you look at comps, you assume, in the next, 3 to 6 months, the values are going to at least remain where they're at, the comps you're seeing today. But what you pay for a property is the most important thing. Really, that's what it is. And it gives you a little bit of margin, because you might be the highest sale in a neighborhood, but how I make most of my money is like the price I pay for it. Mm-hmm. And then I just do, when I'm looking at a property, the main 4 things you need to know is, what are you paying for it? Mm-hmm. How much are you paying in renovations? How long is it going to take you? And then what's it going to sell for? Mm-hmm. And you just do like a net sheet, just work backwards, and you can figure out like how much money you're going to make on that.
Yeah.
And then if you're off, like if hopefully your rehab cost is close, and then your selling cost is at that number or higher or in the ballpark. And but the most important thing is what you're paying for your property.
And how does that work? I'm sorry, Keith. How does that work when you're developing a land, right? So are you developing land to like buy and hold, or you're planning to resell?
Good question. So the way I'm approaching it is, I'm buying the land to get my plans approved. So it's going to take me 6 months to 9 months to get my plans approved to build 6 units. And I hope it only takes 6 to 9 months. But based on the architect in that city, I think that's what's so I'm going to pay an architect and an engineer, and I'm going to submit plans. So it's going to cost me money to draw the plans. Mm-hmm. I bought the property, I own that, and I do have mortgages on it, so I'm making payments. So my goal is to get the plans approved. And at that point, now I can decide, okay, do I want to sell this land with approved plans. And now I've added value to it. Now I've taken this 11,000 square foot lot that has 2 houses on it, and I can sell it because now I have approved plans. I could put it on the MLS, with the realtor. I can resell it, and now I can mark it up and say, hey, here's a development opportunity for another builder, and you can buy it and build it, and I make a little bit of money. And that's how some developers do these projects. So it's all so there in development. There's these kind of interim opportunities: is buy it and then get your plans approved and sell it. But when we get our plans approved, what we'll do is we'll revisit. We'll take a look at maybe where the market is at the time and how we're feeling about things, how many projects I have. And then we may say, hey, let's just go ahead and build it out. And because then we're gonna be committed, probably at least another year of building 6 units. And so that's another, window of exposure for me. But if I do get my plans approved and I decide not to sell it, then I can build it. Now I have this wonderful project, right? Brand new product, 6 units, and I can rent it out, or I could sell it like that, vacant, or put tenants in it, refinance it. So it gives different options.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, I don't know, you might go to plan, hey, let's build it all the way out. But, in maybe 9 months, maybe I'm doing a lot of other projects and we get a, really good offer on it. We're like, oh, let's make a couple $100,000 on it right now, and I don't have to build it.
Yeah.
So it just depends on your situation where you're at. Owning it really well. And that's what I'm doing right now when I'm a little undecided, like the one in South Amani. I have one of my architects work for the city of LA for like 9 or 10 years. So he knows the zoning and the land planning really well. And so he can tell you, hey, you have this size lot based on the zoning. You can do a house, a junior ADU, an ADU, or 2 ADUs, and find out what's possible. Like that's, and sometimes it's beyond our knowledge because we're not architects or draftsmen, but to talk to those people or go to the city and, ask the right questions. Because right now, the great thing is Sacramento is, passing all these wonderful ADU, SB9, they're really loosening up. They want to see housing units, even though a lot of things in our state, I don't agree with some of the things that we do here. It's a challenging state, but they are making some of the development opportunities for housing really appealing. And I want to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
So meaning like take a house, build an ADU, 2 ADUs, a junior ADU, so you can really, the cost that it costs to build that stuff, but the added value you create is just really powerful, right? Turning a garage, spending 50 to 80 grand to convert a garage, and now you can rent that for like, $1,500 to $2,000. Like you can just create a lot of wonderful, value, equity, income opportunities. I think developing and really taking advantage of those ADU laws is and the new development laws is really, exciting. It's super exciting.
What's you have to be exact, but what's like an estimate to build an ADU today?
Well, okay, you can't always do it on a price per square foot. So I have a 2-car garage in Montebello, and it's about 350 square feet, 400. And so I'm going to build that one. I'm only going to spend like 40,000. But then if you're doing it ground up, and you have nothing there, you have to do a foundation. You're probably like 160 to 250 a square foot, sometimes higher. So it's not always price per square foot, but I would say get multiple bids because I see bids from people for what they're doing. I'm like, I would never pay that much money. So I'm doing an 830 square foot ADU in Whittier, and I'm spending, and I'm probably like 160 a square foot. So I'm doing the whole thing about 140,000, which is a really good price. So I would shop around, like find people that are building them, get 3 or 4 bids, and then you don't always need the cheapest person, but you don't want to overpay for something.
Yeah. Because that's a rental at the end of the day.
It is, but it also it means that the decision about buying a flip or building something, if you're your pricing is just, so out of line where it doesn't make sense. So you want to keep trying to find that right person that's going to help you. You don't want to overpay to, especially like a flip, you're not going to live there. I mean, do a good job, but you don't want to, way overpay. So I have a lot of different contractors and crews and people that I meet and just, trying to get, competitive pricing on things.
Have you seen storage become a thing recently?
Storage units?
Yeah.
I think storage units have always been a very attractive, it's a great investment. Like as far as real estate asset classes, storage units, industrial, there are certain product types that have always been appealing. And storage units as an investment have always been hot. I don't own any storage units, but I've heard they're very good because they're relatively, inexpensive to build. The operating expenses are really low because you only have like a manager or a couple of managers. You don't have to do much to them, right? It's like once you build them, like they're great investments. So I know people that own them, and if you have an opportunity to buy them, I would say, or build them or develop. If you can find a place and develop storage units, they're very, very profitable.
Can you lend me some money?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard
I'll
too.
partner with you. Let's go.
Let's do it.
With those deals too, right? Like you can increase your storage rent.
You can. I mean, they're like anything, apartments, flips. We look for the opportunity where we're trying to buy something at the lowest price we can, and that's either going to be because of deferred maintenance or it's poorly managed. So even in a storage unit, maybe you find someone that's owned it forever, or someone passes and then their kids own it and they don't know the first thing about like managing a so unit. So you're always just looking for those opportunities.
Yeah.
Whether it's a flip, it's a piece of land to build, so I think we're always looking for the ideal situation, and it helps them out, the sellers. They get what they want, and we get what we want is this opportunity to, buy a piece of property or a storage unit or a house or apartment building. I've bought several apartment buildings and syndicated, and that usually it's situations where people just want to, sell it quickly, and they look at it as like a headache.
Yeah. Do you have any properties that you're holding on to, like a buy and hold situation?
A couple. Yeah. And then I think these apartments, the exciting thing about it is, when we flip, a lot of times we have to sell them right away because we're carrying, private debt on them. And a lot of times to hold them and rent them, it normally doesn't cover all the private money costs. So for me, it's always been, let me fix it, let me sell it, pay off my private money, recapture any money I have in the deal, and then make a profit. I have done several flips where that I've been able to buy them in, cheap enough. And even with private money, I've got them to pencil, refinanced them a couple of years ago. So I bought some properties that were flips, and now I'm building like ADUs on them, and they're becoming a really nice income property. So, so there are opportunities, but again, it just comes down to the numbers. You're buying a flip in Whittier for, 6, 7, 800,000. Most likely you're not going to probably hold on to it. You'll probably just, fix it up and sell it. But on some of these apartments that I'm doing, I do want to, when I get them built, is to explore getting, long-term, attractive takeout debt on it, like, regular mortgages, like refinance them, whatever the rates might be, 5, 6, whatever they're going to be in, 18 months from now, and then maybe hold on to them. And so I'm excited about, and I think I'll be able to get the majority of my money for buying it and building it. If I'm able to borrow it like 75 or 80% of what it'll appraise for when it's done, I may be able to cover most of my money, and that's where it's going to get really exciting.
That's
it's
when you get a really good deal.
That's when I'm going to be really excited. Yes,
Yeah.
That's the Burr method, isn't it?
Yes.
There you
So.
go.
You're recouping your money,
Yes,
right?
yeah, and being able to hold on to something, and then the nice thing about income proproperties is to be able to depreciate them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice to have that income, but from a tax standpoint, you own real property that your tax person can depreciate or write things off. They're really, I mean, I think they're if you can own rental property, I think it's not just for the rental income, but just to be able to for tax reasons.
What area do you like to keep rental property units, multifamilies? Do you have a specific area or
Anywhere, like probably closer drive, as I can. I don't, I've had things in LA that are like a 45-minute drive, and I own one for like, I don't know, 15 years there, but the closer the better, just more of convenience. I own 3 units in Montebello, and it didn't take me too long to get there. It's still relatively close. So for me, it's just more, convenience, but different areas too. Like I don't want, I've stayed at a certain areas that I'm just not like feeling completely safe or comfortable driving, because just there's certain areas just that you're maybe not as safe. Maybe there's a little bit, the crime element's a little greater. Like that one in like a couple of years in like Riverside, I'm like, I don't want to own. It's San Bernardino. I didn't feel comfortable there. And not that I'm afraid. I mean, I go all over the place, but just there's certain areas that if I'm going to own a longer term property, I want to feel real comfortable there and not driving there, and being concerned about my tenants as well. Like I like my tenants. I take good care of them. And so just probably as close as I can, to me for convenience.
Yeah.
But,
well, Jay, that's some great information. Do you want to ask anything before we?
Yeah. Where do you see your business going, like in the next 10 years?
Great question. So my private lending is good. We the last couple of years been really busy. So I have 13 people that work in my office. So the private lending, I don't see it going away because we do a lot of private money and loans, and people need it. As rates have gone up, and private or in regular mortgages, our private money rates are a little bit more comparable. So people are okay. I'm just gonna. What's that?
Almost equivalent.
Almost. So to answer your question, I see my private lending kind of being consistent, and then on the development side, I'd like to just keep building like more apartments and selling or holding on to them. And so I'm 56 years old. I'm not a young guy, but I like working. I'm really enjoying myself and having a lot of fun, and hopefully, for your audience, like whatever they're doing, they're enjoying it and really being passionate about it. And so right now I'm having a good time. Like I'm really having fun right now, and it's fun to be able to, have a dream and whether that's developing, and to be able to really be participating in it, not just like praying, or dreaming one day I want to do that. But now I'm kind of like, wow, I'm doing it. And
it's on the ground.
I'm doing it right now. It's exciting. It's rewarding. So
I think overall real estate is just an exciting business.
Yeah.
If I bring you a good deal, would you partner with me?
Absolutely. Yes.
After we build storage units.
No, that's what I've always been, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but that's why I partner with a lot of people, is because for me, like my partner doesn't necessarily have to bring money or any money to it, like the opportunity. Like if you brought me a smoking deal, I'd be like, don't worry about the money. I'll come up with it all. And that's where I think I split it. I split it 50-50 with most of my partners. And I think that's appealed to, people like yourself, that you have this opportunity to be like, I don't know how to renovate it. I don't know how to come up with all this money. I don't know how to make the payments. And that's what I kind of do in my sleep. So, so I'm a good partner.
No, definitely. I know a lot of people have done a lot of business with you for sure. So
you can tell you're passionate about it, which I love. Like you get so excited talking about certain aspects of the business, and I'm like, I like that.
It's fun. I mean, sometimes it gets stressful, right? I mean, like whatever you're doing, any business you're doing, it's not always going to be, roses, but you anticipate it. Things aren't going to always go, something's going to get burned down. Someone's going to get broken into. The city's going to give you a hard time. You're going to have a bad neighbor. You're going to have a bad tenant. I always anticipate things are it's going to happen.
Makes
but
it fun, huh?
It does make it fun, but are you prepared to deal with it and address it and just handle it? There's always a solution.
Got to have a positive mindset.
Yeah, you do. Sure. You really do. As often as you can.
Yeah.
Right.
Awesome.
It's really good stuff.
Well, once again, Jay, we really appreciate your time. This is such valuable information. Do you want to say anything before we close?
No, I mean, this is it's so funny. I get your emails and I watch your YouTube videos. And he's
Which
like,
ones?
hey, look, this is Jay. I'm at this project. So it's actually really cool, like having the chance to meet you and speak with you.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you.
Yeah, go more into depth about that.
Well, thank you guys for watching our podcast. Again, this is a community we want to grow, get everyone involved. And you guys always log on to our webinars next week, every week, and our classes every week. So for more information, definitely feel free to reach out to us.
All right. Bye, listing agents.
Have a good week.